Alright, I'm gonna be replacing these hubs, all the bearings and everything in there, and also the wheels and tires, all the way around. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this thing up on jack stands, just for the rest of the build and also to make this easier. So first thing I'm gonna do before I jack it up, I'm gonna loosen these lugs. See if we can figure out which one is it. I have to go loose. There we go. This style is a lug bolt, where it's basically a bolt going in there. I'll be replacing it with the more traditional lug nuts. So you just want to break them loose. Do not take them off. Because right now they're still supporting your trailer. You also want to be sure your wheels are chopped, so that you're not going to roll this trailer off of its tongue jack. Put those loose. I'm going to loosen these, and then we'll loosen the two on the other side, and then we'll jack this thing up. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and get underneath this rear frame and jack this thing up. This is not rocket science, people. Be good. One more notch. There we go. Now, my trailer, when I let it down, will be resting on that jack stand. Let it down real slow. There you go. Now that's on the jack stand, and you continue all the way around till you got it up on the 4 jack stands. Okay, now that you've got your jack stands there, back here, and the same places on the other side, then we can go ahead, we broke these loose, so now you can go ahead and just put your foot there and take these things off. And we're going to do the same on all 4 till they're all gone. This is going to give you access to your frame rails for painting and all that. It's also going to give you access to your fender rails for any painting or repairs that you got to do on those. Also, you might want to do this as your first step if you decide that you want to if you're going to keep your wheels and tires. And you can also keep paint and stuff from getting on your tires by doing this right out the gate. The jack stands just provide a stable platform for you to be able to do your work and not worry about it rolling around, rolling off of the tongue jack. You know what I mean? It's just a safer alternative to all that. Then we'll go back. This one I'm going to go back with new hubs. You know, take your spindles out, of course, they're probably fine. But go back with new hubs. They're going to have lug bolts, so you put your lug nuts on instead of having these bolts here. I mean, you're going to have your lug stud sticking out, so you just bolt it on. So now if it's loose, just pull it off there. And there you go. Now you have access to all this stuff under here. You can inspect it, you can do whatever work necessary, and I'll show you how to change out this hub. Alright, I'll also show you how to take off brake hubs and put on hubs just like this. Well, this shows you the difference between non-brake hubs and brake hubs. These hubs just hold your wheel and spin. These hubs hold your wheel, spin, and also have the capability of having an electronic, there's a shoe in there, be an electronic brake. You got trailer brakes that you see on some of the half-ton trucks or bigger trucks. And what this does is allow you to apply assisting stopping power with your trailer. Now, we're not going to have 4,000 pounds of horses in here, so we really don't need those trailer brakes. If you want to put trailer brakes back on, you can, but it's really not necessary. All right, now we're going to replace all of these hubs. All right, this hub is the one with the brakes in it. I'm going to actually take the brakes off, go back with the hub with no brakes, because we're not hauling horses. We're not going to be in need of brakes, I don't believe. So I'm going to replace these, so I'll show you how it's done. Okay, so on the back side of this brake hub, there's 4 bolts. You can see there's 4 bolts where you could put brakes on this one. So that would bolt your brakes to the spindle. What we're going to do is remove those 4 nuts using an 11/16 socket. I've actually already removed. You want to be sure and put some penetrating oil, some WD-40, air oil, something on there to help loosen those up, because they're going to be a booger. Because this thing's probably never been replaced, or replaced maybe once. So we're going to take our 11/16 socket. Like I said, I've already pulled the other 3 off. You'll also notice there's usually some wires coming out of the axle, or maybe somewhere else, that feed into the back of this drum. That is the wires for a 7-wire trailer brake harness. We're going back with the 4 flat, so there's no need to even keep that. So those are all off. This is actually loose now. So now what I need to do is remove this dust cap, and I'll use this rubber mallet to do that. You just want to kind of hit on it at different angles. There you go. Dust cap is off. Now here is where you're going to want to switch to get you some nitrile gloves, or whatever the other kind used to be, gloves, because it's going to get greasy. So you want to get you some gloves on, just to keep from getting grease everywhere, because it does tend to get a little bit messy. It's not awful, but depending on how you go about it. So I don't know where my channel locks went. I'll get some rags to kind of clean this off, because there's going to be a cotter pin that's through a castle nut that I want to take off there. Alright, so I've got this wire cutters, because a lot of times these side cutters, you're going to have to cut the cotter pin if you can't bend it. And then you're also going to need either some channel locks or something like that to get that castle nut off there. It's not too big of a deal. It's a good idea to use, have some cardboard laying around to put all your greasy stuff on, because like I said, it just will get messy. All right, so there's my cotter pin. You can see that cotter pin sticking out right there. All right. That's all we need to remove. So we can actually, that cotter pin, if you can straighten it out, then you can actually get a hold of the head of that thing and pull it out. There you go. There's your cotter pin. probably going to be going back with a new one, so there's really no need in salvaging that. It's a good idea, just clean up as you go. I say that more often than I do it. So this castle nut is actually usually on there, you know, you don't want it on there super tight. It's only going to be on there like hand tight. And so move this off your spindle. Save your castle nut because not all hub kits, replacement kits come with a new castle nut. So be sure and save that. This is called a castle nut because you can see it kind of looks like a castle. Those slots are where your cotter pin goes through. So just clean that up a little bit. Then that whole thing comes off. This can come apart. If it's not seized up, it can come apart. So now we have our spindle. All right, you want to kind of clean that up because we're going to be putting a brand new one on there. Now, remember what I said, we're not going to be going back to bolt in there. We're going to be going in this area. Let me see if I can. Got to clean that up. The cleaner the better. And it's not do or die. Just the cleaner the better. Because you've got old, you can see in here, you've got an old, where this is worn, and maybe got some water in there, moisture. What we're going to be going back with, actually let me show you, I'll show you whenever I get there. Alright, so this kit is pre-greased. So they all come with these different. You're not going to need that dust cap. We're going with something different. We're going with something called bearing buddies, which are a lot better. All right. So what in the world? Okay. Had a lug in there. So this thing came with a new castle nut, new cotter pin. You got your race, you got your seals. So I'll show you how this all goes on. This is all pre-packed, ready to go. So all we got to do, if this is wrapped around there to keep dust and moisture out. And you can see it's pre-packed, pre-greased. That's nice. So you want to kind of slide this on there. It's going to fit like a glove. Okay. Alright, so that's on there. We're going to put this race on there. Put our new castle nut. Also make note of where your cotter pin goes. Apologize for hobbling around. My knees been giving me fits. All right, so we're gonna tighten down that new cotter, the new castle nut. You want it actually just hand tight. There's a little burr where that on these threads where that hole is for the cotter pin. All right. So we want it about that tight. I want to tighten it up just a little bit so I can get access to that hole. Be sure you're still spinning good. All right, look at that. That is as tight as can be. So now, yeah, let me see. That might be a little too tight. Yeah, that's better. All right, so I just moved it one, whatever you want to call it, turret or whatever, of the castle. All right, there's that. Finally, I did my other pliers. And you're gonna pull that, want that through there. You want this bent around. You want this other one bent around the other direction. And what this is going to do, the whole point of this cotter pin is to keep your castle nut from backing off. So that's the whole point. All right. So that's on there. So now we're going to put, it spins good. It'll be kind of tight until you get some good grease in there and get it going down the road. It'll feel tight, and it should feel tight. Shouldn't have any play in it. All right, I'll show you what we're going to put on there. It's called Bearing Buddies. Bearing Buddies might actually be a brand name. So these are, what do you call them, hub covers, hub protectors, something like that. What these do is inside this boot, if you can get this boot off. That may be the biggest trick I show you, is getting that dang boot off. So these are designed to fit right inside that hub, and where this, you normally have your dust cap. So instead of, these boots on there good. So instead of having this dust cap on there, so you could put this dust cap on there. This is just this rubber thing, which is pointless. And instead of that, we're going back with this, which is all stainless instead of this little aluminum cap. We're going back with this stainless solid bearing deal with the grease zerk right in the middle of it. And so what this allows you to do, and it's spring loaded. So what this does is keep a continual positive pressure on your bearings of grease, okay? And what that does, it keeps moisture out, and it keeps grease shoved in those bearings. As it's moving, there's no grease settling anywhere. It's all staying packed in there. It keeps it packed, basically. So that's what we're going back with. And there's not a science to it. Well, I say it's not a science to it. We need your rubber hammer. So all you do is just tap this thing into place. Sometimes I've had some be tighter fits than the others. Okay, so I did the same process with this front one. And it's the same thing, you can see. Now, there's what your bearing buddy looks like when it's on there. So, I'm gonna replace all 4 of them. And it's the same process for all of them, except for these ones are actually easier. There's the old ones in there. Is instead of having to do the 4 bolts on the back and take that whole mess off, you actually just taking off. All it is removing your dust cap, cotter pin, castle nut, sliding your assembly off, put the new assembly on, put your race, which is that little washer, and then your castle nut, and then your cotter pin, and then your bearing buddy, and then you grease it up, and it's good to go. All right, since I already showed you the other side, that rear brake, I've already done the rear brake on this one, or the brake hub. I took the brakes off and put the normal hub on. I was gonna show you, I got thinking about it, I was like, well, maybe they'd like to see just this normal hub as well. So pulled the dust cap off. You know, you just knock that off with a rubber mallet. Then you want to kind of take some of this grease off, where you find your cotter pin. If you can straighten these out, great. If not, then you can always use your side cutters and cut them off. Because you're not going to be reusing this cotter pin anyway. Alright, cotter pin's out. So now, need to remove this castle nut. As you can see, it's, you know, they're not too awful tight, really. But you only want them to be hand tight. You want them to be snug. Using pliers because it's a lot cleaner. Alright, castle nuts off. Now, this bearing assembly come off. That one was a little snug. No biggie. Now, you want to clean all this off. Make sure clean this off good. All right. Before I get the new bearings on, we get this. There's a washer in here. I don't know if it's called a washer or a race. I think the bearings are in a race. But open this up. This has got your new cotter pin, all your lug nuts, which we'll set up here for later. You got a new castle nut, dust cover, and then this washer is what I want. So I'll set my castle nut, that stuff down there. All right, so gotta unwrap the new hub assembly. It's a good idea to keep it horizontal like that, just to make it easier. And then none of your bearings fall out or anything. It's not the end of the world if they do, but that in there. So I put that washer on with that. Something on there. Part of my glove or something. So you want to screw this on there. You want it to be hand tight. You don't want to feel it. You don't want to feel any jiggling in your hub assembly. I'm going to back it up just a hair to find this hole. Put your cotter pin in there. And then bend your ends around. Personally, I like to go different directions. It's not a must, but I like to do different directions. All right. And that's it, guys. This is installed. I'm gonna put a bearing buddy on there. I might show you that. Put a bearing buddy on there, and then we'll grease it up. All right, so the bearing buddy, I pulled this boot off. Give myself some room here. Make sure it's nice and clean. Just line it up. Might need to get my baby sledge. There you go. It's got a grease zerk. At least got grease zerks in the end. We'll grease this puppy up here in a minute.